Great pleasure to welcome back to the program a woman who was with us, I guess about 6-8 months ago when her previous CD came out, but she has a brand new one that is really doing well, getting great reviews. It's called To Connie Love Jenna. Jenna Esposito sings Connie Francis. We are joined by Jenna Esposito today from the beautiful city of Brooklyn, New York. How are you, Jenna?
I'm great, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to talk to you again. I guess it's about 6-8 months ago since we talked to you. I think at that time you were just kind of putting the finishing touches on this CD, weren't you?
Yes, yeah. We recorded it live at the Metropolitan Room last summer, and I think that was around the time we talked. And so then we went into the studio and mixed it down, and we've got the new baby already.
Yeah, it's kind of unusual in the sense that it's a live performance CD. I mean, you don't see too many of those anymore, and I'm glad you did one, because back in the day, a lot of the singers did the live performance ones. Those were kind of fun for you, right?
Right. Well, and even, the way they recorded in the studio then was much more akin to just doing a live performance and going with it. There wasn't all this, overdubbing and punching in lines. So I think stylistically it's a lot more similar to what Connie Francis would have done back in her heyday.
Does that make it easier to do a CD that way, or is it a little harder? How do you approach that?
Well, it is a little trickier in some regards because you don't have the luxury of, oh man, I wish we could fix that measure. But it makes it easier because it limits what you can do. It is what it is, and you go in and do what you can with it and try to balance everything, but you can't drive yourself crazy the way you can with a studio recording.
It's kind of like Frank Sinatra used to do in those days, Dean Martin, where they used to go in the Capitol studios, had the band right with them in there, and,
exactly,
and they did like a concert. Maybe I know they take stops, but they would do it as a live performance almost, right?
Right, and there's something about that energy I think is great that you kind of lose no matter how hard you try to capture it in a studio recording. It's not the same as having everybody in the room together and making the music all at the same time.
Did you do a couple of different shows and then you kind of edit what you felt maybe was a better performance than another?
We had a little bit of leeway. We used 3 different shows that we'd recorded, and so we could mix and match a little bit. So it wasn't like we just had one shot at it. So that was nice to have the luxury of being able to have 3 takes of each song to choose from.
And you have that live audience there, which always adds a different element, doesn't it?
It does.
The energy of it, I mean.
Oh, it's really fun. I love performing as much as I love recording. There's nothing like being in a room with an audience and the give and take of that kind of energy.
Let's talk a little bit. I know we did last time, but for those that weren't with us, your appreciation of Connie Francis. What brought about the project to begin with, to do this CD?
Well, it's funny. My dad, Fortune Esposito, he's actually my musical director. You can hear him playing guitar on the CD, and he actually has a few lines as Connie's father, because her father had a big influence on her career. But anyway, so my dad is a musician, obviously, and I grew up listening to 50s and 60s rock and pop with him. And so Connie Francis had always been, part of my consciousness. I knew Where the Boys Are, Who's Sorry Now, Stupid Cupid. And, I'd done a couple of her songs before in various shows, and it was summer of 2008. I just randomly decided to do Where the Boys Are at an open mic. And I've never gotten a reaction like that at an open mic to any song I've done. People went nuts for it, and a bunch of them stopped me afterwards. About 4 or 5 different people stopped me and said, Jenna, have you ever thought about doing an all Connie Francis show? The material suits you so well, you sound great on it. And at that point, I hadn't thought about it, but I started doing some research to see if it would be a fit, and I just fell in love with her. She is just, in addition to being an incredible singer, she is just a tremendous person.
She's been through a lot, too. I mean, off the stage, we all know the stories. I mean, some sad things, obviously, but she's a survivor, isn't she?
She is. She's such a fighter. I have such respect for her as a person. She has fought back against obstacles that would have just grounded other people. And to this day, she's still performing. She's just overcome so much. So that was definitely one of the things that attracted me to her, in addition to loving her music. But just the kind of person she is.
I think I was reading somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't she go through a terrible stage where she was afraid of performing, afraid of getting on stage for a while?
Well, she actually lost her voice. She couldn't sing for about 7 years, and it was terribly depressing for her because, that was her joy in life, and she lost it. And just miraculously, one day she was riding in the car with a friend and had the radio on and started, out of habit, trying to sing along, and she realized her voice was back. So she called her manager and got herself booked in a comeback concert, and that was in 1981, and she hasn't stopped since.
And I think I also saw somewhere that she's the #1 recording artist as far as sales goes of all time, or the top female recording artist of all time. Is that right? I know she's up there, but...
Yeah, I know she's up there. I'm not sure if she is the top, but she broke all kinds of records with her sales, back in her heyday. And she also, if you include the international sales, that's probably accurate. She recorded in 13 different languages, so she had, in addition to her success here, she was huge in Europe, Italy, Germany, to name a few. England, she had a tremendous amount of success. Japan, you name it. She really just had quite an international career, too.